Hello again and welcome to another episode of Slash Camp. Miel here, and as you can see, I'm in a different location than what you normally see me in. I actually decided that I was going to change my room around, and no longer am facing towards this wall right here. So normally what you'd see is me facing this way, but now what you see is me this way. So my Assassin's Creed posters are on this wall, so it's just, I kind of rotated this way. And I like this setup a lot better, mainly because I actually have floor space now instead of having just this tiny little corridor, which I got to actually squeeze into. The downside is, as you can see, I currently have all of my stuff completely rearranged and piled in the corner. Hopefully before podcast tomorrow I actually get that kind of organized, because as you can see, let's see, we have computer monitor box right there, all my papers down here, that's an actual stand. It's just a mess. It's just a mess. And as you can see up top, I have my Van Gogh, I can't do math. Haha. Right there. My Doctor Who Van Gogh poster. So, today is a very Dresden Files-esque day. And I'm going to start off by saying that the new book, Skin Game, comes out today. It was supposed to come out at midnight, but unfortunately, I tried Walmart, 2 different Walmarts, and they did not have it. So I'm going to have to wait until probably about 6 a.m. until it gets released as Kindle, and then purchase it then and be up all day reading the Dresden Files. And then the second piece of news for the Dresden Files is I managed to actually get a Dresden Files Lives game together today, which is the Larp game, which has been absolutely amazing. It's been so much fun. I was doing that as my Memorial Day kind of day thing for the most part. I've been reading through the books like crazy. Well, I'm sorry, the rulebook like crazy. For being someone who hasn't really played the tabletop, there's a lot of things in there that kind of just confuse me from just a basic player standpoint, and I don't know whether it's just hey, this is what the RPG says compared to what the LARP says, or if it's something that I kind of just need to go read the feat system for the tabletop game to understand the LARP, which I'm really hoping that later on it gets kind of fixed and tweaked a little bit so that they're both kind of standalones. And it would be better. It would honestly be better. But the game that we played tonight, I ended up pretty much playing a wizard, which was pretty cool. One of the most rememberable moments was the fact that in the game, the plot leader, I think is what they're calling it, or plot team, my storyteller, in other words, had put us in this cavern. And it was hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Okay, so we walk into the cavern. Oh, first. We're at the Pittsburgh Zoo. And what ended up happening... Okay, this is technically turning into a slash roleplay, so I'm just going to title it as a slash roleplay. Screw slash camp. We're now into slash roleplay, guys. So... we ended up going to the Pittsburgh Zoo. And what ended up happening was, the bear enclosure where all the doors are, there was a portal to the Never Never that was in the enclosure, which was pretty weird and interesting in the same point. And it took us 5 minutes to figure out there was a portal to the Never Never. I'm playing a wizard, we have a sorcerer in the party, we have a werewolf in the party, and we have someone who's a changeling in the party. And it was hilarious because we're all just kind of staring at this corridor, which is a blank wall in front of us, and we're just what's going on right now? Where are we we going through? And there's like a shoe from a kid. Well, that was the whole point of us coming to the zoo, was because there's missing kids. Anyhow, so there's a shoe that's like right there at the very end of the wall, and I'm like, I don't get this. I don't understand what. So I'm like looking around. We start like knocking certain places, and then like we finally just hit that wall where it was just like, obviously everyone is stumped. Except for the one person who's playing a dumb character who knew what was going on, and it was hilarious because he couldn't like say anything at all because, well, his character didn't know it. So, oh, it was hilarious. So, eventually we get to the point where we're like, oh, duh, there's a portal to the Never. So, we go into the portal, and it's like another cavern, and we start walking, and there's like this giant pool of water, and these like fishmen from H.P. Lovecraft start coming out of the water, and I'm like, you know what works great for this? Electricity. And I'm like, I'm just gonna, electrify the water. So I like threw a huge lightning spell into the water, fried everything that was in that water, and it was great. Absolutely great. And so after that happened, we had like this giant monster that kind of reminded us of Davy Jones, but was more monsterish, like, so kind of like a mini Cthulhu-esque. So he comes like rising up out of the water, and he's in like this sphere of like magic concealment and all this kind of stuff, and it was pretty cool and awesome. And the sorcerer's like, you know what, I cast a fireball, because that was his element, is fire. So he's like, I'm gonna cast a fireball at it, and it just kind of like focuses on the shield. And then I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna pull a Dresden, because who better of a role model? Like, really? Who better of a role model? So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make, like, a fireball-esque explosion at the ceiling. And I'm going to bring the whole ceiling down. So I did that, and, like, the ceiling started to crack, and, like, what was it? The werewolf and the changeling were like, we're going to save the kids, because there was 4 kids that were trapped in this room and being used as like incubators and weird things. It was definitely weird. Definitely weird. So the changeling had, because there was a door to get, okay, so if no one's been to the Pittsburgh Zoo, the bear exhibit is like a semicircle-esque, and then you have like pie chunks or slices, and then each slice is like a different bear exhibit. Well, each one has a door where the bears can crawl in, and they hide and cubby, and they get food there and stuff like that. Well, there's these iron doors, so it's kind of funny because we have the changeling, and according to the Dresden lore, like they're not immune. Their like weakness is like iron and like silver and stuff like that. So he's just like, I can touch this, right? And the storyteller was like, yeah, you can touch it. So he was like, okay, and he pulls the door off, and it was hilarious because you had the mage, not me, like the wizard, who was like casting fire, like a located fire to like burn the hinges and like tear it apart, and then he just like grabs the door and he's using it as a shield, and he has this chain wrapped around. It's hilarious, absolutely hilarious. So we're gonna skip back ahead to the fight with Davy Jones, pretty much. And so like they're running, trying to get to the kids, and like they scoop up the kids. And so at this point I was just like, okay, so I started bringing the ceiling down. And the changeling had the great idea to throw the iron door at the barrier. So, because this creature couldn't focus on so many things coming at him, and so keeping his shield focused here at the wizard, or here at the sorcerer, and here at the wizard, and then here at the changeling, he ended up just kind of like going back into the depths of the water. And it was just awesome. It was just really awesome. So, like, Changeling no longer has the door for the shield. He has, like, 2 kids under his arm. The werewolf, who's, like, completely naked now because he shifted out, is, like, grabbing kids, and we were making, like, all sorts of jokes. All sorts of jokes, which was hilarious because we're like, you need to put pants on before those kids come around, or, like, anyone sees you, and it was great. It was absolutely great. So, to add fuel to the fire, as we're, like, running down the corridor, because obviously the whole thing's collapsing in, I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna cast another, like, little mini grenade of, like, lightning and toss it over my shoulder as I'm running, and make sure it hits the pool of water, so, like, it electrifies the guy again. It was great. And then, like, we slid past the Never Never, and back to the other side, and it was definitely an adventure. It was awesome. And then, like, we had the 2 security guards who, we were making a lot of noise in the enclosure, and, like, they're patrolling the enclosure, but they were pulling, like, cards that were just awful, like -3s, -2s. It was bad. It was really bad. So we never got noticed, and even though we're making all this noise and all this racket. So we take the kids back over to the other side of the exhibit, because there's, like, the giant moat, and so, like, the Changeling is, like, just jumping over, and everyone else is kind of, like, being assisted over the wall, and we leave the kids there. We're just like, we don't want anything to be said about how we rescued these kids, so we're just gonna leave them here, and then the patrol guys can, like, come get them. And it was hilarious, because, like, they were, like, the worst patrolmen ever in the course of freaking gaming history ever. And then they ended up, like, the next day you find out in the newspaper, like, we saved these kids, we rescued these kids. So, like, they went from being the worst to, like, the most recognized, and it was so bad. So bad. But all in all, it was so much fun. Character creation was kind of a little, I wouldn't say hectic, but a little confusing. It took, I wouldn't say, it was like a 3 out of 5. It was average for character creation. It wasn't too, like, just hand-holdy. It gave you a lot of things to play with. You could make your own characters however you wanted. But at the same time, like, the reason I just give it kind of like an average score, there wasn't a lot to give us, like, an emphasis on things. It's like, it was too open-ended. You didn't get, like, kind of much of a description of things, or if you did, they were just very vague. So, I mean, it wasn't too bad. As for, like, easiness on, like, if to pick it up and then just be able to, like, run with it, I want to give it, like, a 4 out of 5, maybe a 5 out of 5, because there was only probably about 6 things on the character sheet. So that was good. The simplicity was amazing on it. As for, like, how it really worked for the game and in combat and stuff like that, there's still, it's obviously in beta, so there's still a lot of things that, to me, were very clunky, and there was too many times we had to look at the storyteller and go, okay, what does this do? What's going on? And, like, a lot of it you use general, like, tabletop, I have a little gnat flying around, general tabletop, not Dresden specifically, but, like, in general, like, tabletop things, like, if you're trying to hide, you use spot, and stuff like that. So, it definitely had, a bit of an easy use type system, and it wasn't too bad when it came down to being like, oh, here, let me hold your hand, because, like, you still, it was all situational, but there was too much that was just left up to the storyteller. And honestly, I don't really, from a player aspect, I don't really like that, because then the storytellers have a better chance of just fudging the rules on a whim. And then you don't really know, say, if I'm going to be a storyteller, the rules are going to be different. And the consistency is something that I really enjoy with playing tabletop games or playing LARPs and stuff like that. You know what the rules are, whether you go from this table to this table to this table. And I think that's something that kind of needs a little bit of work done. But I don't want to go too much further into detail because, like I said, this is currently in beta, and I can't give out any more information. Has to be very broad and not like specific. But yeah, so hopefully at a later time they will lift that a little bit more, and I can explain to you guys perhaps more in an in-depth detail of exactly what was going on behind the scenes of this game. But all in all, the story has been amazing. I love playing in the Dresden verse. It has been absolutely fun. I like being able to pull in all sorts of aspects, from like pranks people did in the game to stunts that Harry has done over and over again. We kept making reference to like the shield bracelets and to the bubble he used when he went down the elevator shaft. I mean, it was very cool to like be able to pull in from your favorite book, and then you knew what was going on. So kudos, guys, kudos. This is awesome. And it is unfortunately 2:30 in the morning, and I have podcast tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern time at twitch.tv/ElmiraMeow, so go check that out later on. And until next time, guys, we're going to try and do like a weekly setup for Dresden. This was our first actual gameplay. We had theory crafted and made characters like prior to this, but this was actually like our first game that we had been able to play as a group. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed our little story, and I shall see you guys again next time. Have a good one. Bye-bye.